day, things seem to be getting worse and worse between the WNBA and the Players Union. In what should have been a very exciting time, as players, if they would have signed a new CBA, you'd have players jetting all over the place. You would have multiple expansion drafts and all this movement across the league. Fans would be getting excited about what their teams.
The room tightened before anyone even explained why. Smiles stiffened, and suddenly one name carried more weight than the commissioner's title itself. It's strange how a league built on collective strength can start to feel shaken by a single spotlight. Something shifted quietly, almost politely, and now the balance of power looks uncomfortable. This isn't just about talent, and it's not about timing either. It's about control, image, and what happens when the future arrives uninvited and refuses to wait its turn.
Folks, money talks, BS walks. And though the league and the players have not come to terms on a new collective bargaining agreement, the league and the owners are giving the general managers a clear message. Send out free agent offers anyway. Maybe if we dangle some dollars in front of these players' faces, they're more likely to say, I can go for a paycheck right now. Oh, I know we're all strong on this front, but I'm kind of hungry for a meal. I could use a...
The funny thing about power is how it pretends nothing is changing right up until the moment the room rearranges itself, without asking permission. 1 minute, everything feels managed. The next one player is selling out arenas, hijacking TV ratings, pushing merchandise into overdrive, and unintentionally revealing just how fragile the entire structure really is.
Sage Steele just poured a dose of reality and cold water on these WNBA players about this whole pay thing, this lockout strike, whatever it is you want to call it. Sage Steele let it be known, hey, listen, man, y'all not all what y'all think y'all are, and y'all need to relax and take a chill pill. Let's get to what...
Because here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud with a straight face. The WNBA finally got the moment it spent decades chasing, and now it looks slightly uneasy about what that moment actually demands in return.
Momentum. We talked about this. The WNBA had all this momentum from Caitlin Clark, the growth of the league, new media rights deal. And even without a lockout and or strike as of yet, this is damaging the league. This is fans are exhausted with it. Fans are exhausted with the Players Union and how they're approaching this and how they're acting.
This was supposed to be the victory lap. The league had momentum, headlines, eyeballs, and relevance that could no longer be brushed off as niche or symbolic. Caitlin Clark didn't just bring attention, she brought proof. Ticket sales surged. Broadcast interest exploded.
WNBPA and the WNBA statement. The WNBA basically just said, we want to build upon the league. We want, we know we want a deal that gives the best players more money, enhances the player experience and supports the long-term growth. The WNBA players, and by the way, the players are in the right to argue for this. The WNBA are basically being like, well, what the players want isn't sustainable. I think if the players could guarantee the league will...
Casual fans suddenly knew player names without needing a media guide. And somehow, despite all of that, the league still found a way to stumble over its own feet. That's where the tension starts to feel personal. Because when a league is still losing money while one player is practically dragging it uphill like an Olympic sled, quiet questions begin to surface. Not dramatic ones, not angry ones, just the kind that land heavier than shouting ever could. Why does everything still feel stalled? Why does progress feel cosmetic? Why do free agency freezes linger, expansion plans wobble, and arenas pencil in other events because uncertainty doesn't pay rent? Nothing signals confidence like asking the world to wait while momentum quietly slips out the back door. Meanwhile, fans watch with the look of someone who finally got front row seats, only to be told the show might be canceled because of arguments over who controls the lights. They were promised movement, excitement, and growth. Instead, They got press releases, moratoriums, and the slow realization that the league's biggest obstacle might not be outside disrespect, but inside confusion.
So, the WNBPA and the WNBA statement. The WNBA basically just said, we want to build upon the league. We want, we know we want a deal that gives the best players more money, enhances the player experience and supports the long-term growth. The WNBA players, and by the way, the players are in the right to argue for this. The WNBA are basically being like, well, what the players want isn't sustainable. I think if the players could guarantee.
And right at the center of it all is Caitlin Clark doing the one thing a fragile power structure can't handle, becoming impossible to ignore. Everywhere she goes, the numbers follow. Jerseys disappear from shelves. Arenas sell out. TV ratings jump like someone suddenly cranked the volume too high. She isn't asking for control. She isn't campaigning for power. She isn't demanding anything. She just keeps showing up, playing basketball, and making it painfully clear where the league's real value currently lives. That's why the situation feels so uncomfortable. When one player becomes the face, the engine, and the proof of concept at the same time, it exposes how little direction existed before she arrived. Even now, with packed buildings and national attention, the disconnect is no longer subtle. Fans see it. Broadcasters see it. Sponsors definitely see it. Nothing highlights the contradiction faster than watching one player create massive demand while the system around her struggles to fully capitalize on it.
I think the league would make the deal, but there's no guarantee of that because everybody in the league is smart enough to know we are one Caitlin Clark injury away from this league going back to pre-2024, not 2023, but everything lower in 2024. Like, we all know this league is nowhere near as culturally relevant right now as it was in 2024. In the summer of 2025, did First Take talk about any women's basketball? They talked about any of these.
At a certain point, the math stops being philosophical and starts being awkward. Here's the irony. Caitlin Clark isn't just carrying the league's visibility, she's carrying its credibility. She's living proof that the product can sell when it's presented clearly, marketed boldly, and allowed to breathe. Which leads to an uncomfortable question for leadership. If this works so well, why did it take this long? And why does it still feel like no one knows what to do with it? That's where excitement slowly turns into suspicion. Not anger, just confusion. Confusion about why growth feels treated like a threat instead of a gift. Confusion about why negotiations sound more like standoffs than progress. Deadlines pass. Decisions freeze. Everyone claims they're protecting the future while quietly putting it on pause. It becomes a staring contest where nobody wants to blink, even as the audience starts losing patience. And the commissioner ends up trapped in a position that somehow grows more complicated by the day.
Know that there was no deal that was agreed upon by the January 9th deadline. We know that the WNBA owners left the players' text messages on red. That's right. Left them on scene, no response, and the players had an emotional statement. They went and put a rat outside the NBA store in New York. They put out this emotional statement talking about the WNBA owners are intentionally trying to run out the clock, and this will not, stop it. Y'all are so busy trying to win over public perception. Y'all are forgetting that the most important thing is actually getting.
On one side stands tradition, structure, and the instinct to protect authority. On the other side stands reality, which has no respect for titles, hierarchy, or carefully scripted statements. Reality only cares about who fills seats, who drives attention, and who keeps the lights on. Right now, reality has a clear favorite. That's when the whispers begin. Not loud protests, not organized revolts, just a steady murmur that sounds a lot like common sense. If Caitlin Clark already functions as the league's center of gravity, why not let her help shape its direction? If she's the one fans trust and rally behind, why keep pretending she's just another piece instead of the cornerstone? The thought makes leadership uneasy, which is usually how you know it matters. Optics don't negotiate. When people see stalled momentum, frozen movement, and public friction, they naturally start imagining alternatives. They picture what the league might look like if the person driving its popularity had more influence over where it's headed.
At this point in time, because everyone in the players union is running around just slandering the WNBA. NECA's slandering them. Nafisa Collier, she's going out her way crazy to slander them. Brianna Stewart is slandering them. And then you gotta understand, NECA's a package deal. Don't forget her sister, Chini Agumake. See, a whole bunch of things have to change at this point in time. I'm kind of glad we're here in a sense. But let me get back to my original point before I go there with it. Why is it so hard for Kathy to say Nafisa, Brianna, Kelsey...
And this is the point where everything starts to feel messy. The players' union, public criticism, familiar names taking shots at the league, frustration spilling into the open. It creates the sense that something deeper has to change. Not because Caitlin Clark asked for it, but because the situation itself demands it. The irony almost writes itself. The league finally discovers a star who breaks through every old ceiling, and the response is to slow down and argue over structure while the moment quietly slips away. It's like finding fire and then forming a committee to debate whether warmth fits the long-term plan. Meanwhile, financial reality keeps knocking. Losses don't care about branding language or internal politics. They just pile up, waiting for someone to either fix the system or admit it needs rebuilding. And rebuilding takes bold choices, not cautious pauses. It means accepting that control does not always equal stability, and that relevance often requires adaptation. Fans already understand this. They're just waiting for the league to catch up. The longer the standoff lasts, the clearer the imbalance becomes. Caitlin Clark keeps delivering. The league keeps hesitating.
Focus now to the WNBA. The league's collective bargaining agreement expired on Friday night without a new deal. The league and the Players Association have both released statements. Now, the league statement says, in part, as the league experiences a pivotal time of unprecedented popularity and growth, we recognize the importance of building upon that momentum. Our priority is a deal that significantly increases player salaries, enhances the overall player experience, and supports the long-term growth of the league for current and future generations of players and fans.
The commissioner talks about process, while the audience keeps asking for progress. Every delay reinforces the same uneasy conclusion. The current leadership model may not be built for the era it has stumbled into. That's not an attack, it's an observation. Leadership isn't about preserving order when nothing changes. It's about guiding the storm when everything changes at once. Right now, change is sprinting while the league is still tying its shoes. That's why the idea of Caitlin Clark as a leadership symbol won't disappear. Not because she's chasing power, but because the vacuum is obvious. Fans are drawn to momentum, clarity, and confidence. They want to figure who represents where the league is going, not where it's been stuck. And whether anyone likes it or not, the comparison keeps happening. Every sold-out crowd becomes a reminder. Every ratings surge becomes evidence. Every stalled decision becomes contrast. At some point, time stops being an excuse and starts becoming a liability. This moment could have been embraced, used as a bridge to real change. Instead, the league appears defensive, trying to manage optics while the narrative moves on without permission. Caitlin Clark represents possibility. The current leadership, to many watching, represents hesitation.
How hard is it to say that? NECA Agumake, you're going to Project B. You're not even going to be here no more. You're on your last leg. You're not coming back to the WNBA. Why are we negotiating with you? Nafisa Collier, you have unrivaled. You started your own league, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's your priority, cool. Just because you started your league don't mean you get more clout over here with us, though. The girl literally went on camera and said, being a owner of Unrivaled, she knows what it takes to run a sustainable league. And then 2 days later, the ratings came out. Content creators have more people watching them than these.
And here's the part no one really wants to say out loud. If the league keeps losing money, keeps slowing its own growth, and keeps wasting momentum even while its biggest star is carrying the weight, then change won't be a choice. It will be forced. Owners will start asking harder questions. Sponsors will start pushing back. Fans will slowly drift away. And suddenly, ideas that once sounded extreme will start to sound necessary. At that point, the commissioner won't be operating from comfort, but from pressure, because leadership isn't something you simply hold on to. It's something you have to earn day after day. And that becomes difficult when the person generating the league's relevance has almost no say in where that relevance is going. The longer that gap remains, the louder the calls to reshape the power structure will grow. Not out of rebellion, but out of logic. The league now stands at a crossroads it never expected to reach. One road leads to tight control, slow negotiations, and the hope that momentum will politely wait. The other means accepting an uncomfortable reality. The future already has a face, and it's selling out arenas faster than bureaucracy can move. Fans have already chosen their direction. The only real question is how long leadership will keep pretending this is still up for debate. Because pretending has an expiration date, and in sports, that date comes fast. Momentum doesn't pause for meetings, and stars don't wait for permission to change the landscape. They just do it, and everyone else either adjusts or gets dragged along, acting like it was the plan all along.
Kind of pin this with just a little background from me, right? And so as a former player, someone who was on the executive committee, went through 2 CBA negotiations, and let me just tell y'all, never want to do that again. A lot going on there, but also as a current investor in the WNBA, these are negotiations. This happens. We read both those statements. It's basically saying we're staying at the table and we're continuing to talk. And that's what you want to see happen.
This is the moment when the league has to decide whether it wants to guide the wave or simply try to survive it. Because Caitlin Clark is not a short-term surge, not a social media moment, and not a temporary marketing boost to be shelved once things feel calm again. She represents a structural shift, the kind that forces difficult conversations about who truly understands today's fan, who knows how to market a product without hesitation, and who can turn attention into long-term stability instead of short-term spin. If leadership continues to treat her impact like a lucky break instead of a blueprint, the fallout won't be quiet. Fans will keep wondering why the person driving the excitement has no real voice. Sponsors will start questioning why the league's most valuable asset seems underused. And the commissioner will be left explaining stagnation in a time when standing still looks a lot like moving backward. Eventually, the storyline changes. It stops being about whether Caitlin Clark deserves more influence and becomes about why she doesn't already have it. That's when power shifts, not through announcements or formal titles, but through relevance. Because in sports, relevance is authority, whether it's officially recognized or not. And if the league truly wants to make it through the next chapter, it may have to face the hardest truth of all. The future already arrived, filled the building, and waited. Now the only question is whether those in charge are bold enough to trust it before the engine loses steam.